Hi everyone. This is our kitchen greenhouse window. Hi. So I'm standing in our kitchen, and hanging above the window is a set of cowbells. Let me see if I can make them make a sound. So we got these some years ago from my parents' house, and they were hanging in their kitchen, and then they ended up moving to a smaller place, and so we inherited them. But before that, they were at my grandparents' farm in Pennsylvania, and that's where I spent many hours and actually lived there for a year when I was really little. So they are very meaningful to me. So for this project, you'll want to be picking something that's a treasured object for you to draw. And I'm going to suggest pencil, graphite pencil. So I will demonstrate some of the steps for that, although I'm sure you're all experts at that by now. Okay. Now I'm ready to work on my drawing. I've done a lot of the sketch, taken some time and really looked at my photo reference. A lot of it is involving those nasty little ellipses and really getting the angle of those right. And if you remember, there's an axis on each ellipse, and there's an axis on the cylinder. And remember, those are at right angles. So if this is tilted like this, then the axis of the ellipse will be at right angles. So each bell has its own little tilt, mostly similar, but they do vary. So I've been using that. I did a gesture drawing first, and I took a photo of that, so you'll be able to see it on the site. I've got all my tools out. I'm using a smooth surface or a plate surface Bristol board, and this is really nice for graphite work. I think we talked before about the vellum surface being better for colored pencil, but this is really nice for graphite pencil. I've got my straight edge, so it helped me get some of these angles right on the window. There's a lot of wonky angles. And because it was taken close up at a sort of a upward view, we're not getting these verticals looking that vertical. So I've got my lighter pencils over here, a 4H and a 2H. I've got my blending tools. I've got my powdered graphite. I guess I better be careful about that. I've got a little paper to lean my hand on so that I'm not rubbing my graphite as I work. And I'm probably going to work left to right anyway. I'm right-handed, so if you started here, chances are you would be making a little bit more of a mess going this way. I've still got a lot of little sketchy lines, and I've tried to clean up some of those lines. They were a lot more so before. And then what I did before I started is I'm kind of lifting some of these lines, because we really don't want to have visible outlines and this is going to be somewhat photorealistic. So I've lifted it so there's just sort of a ghost image showing, just so I don't have really strong outlines, but there's enough there to guide me. So what I've done first is I used some graphite powder, and there's a couple things, different things I can do. I have a tissue, and I wrapped it around my finger, and I dipped it in that powdered graphite and rub it on a paper. I wouldn't go directly to that because there's going to be big chunks of it. And I better put the lid on this. Another way to lay on the color is to use a graphite stick. This happens to be a dark one, and then you can rub your tissue on that. So I'm going to use that technique, and I'm going to give this bell a base coat of kind of a middle value. And I'm not going to worry if it's going out of the lines and if it's covering up some of the light values, because that's going to help with the eraser. So I can go ahead and give it a, and I could actually do a middle value over the whole drawing, because there's a lot of dark middle values there. Okay, so I think I'll use a little bit more. Let's get to, this was the one with the powdered graphite, so it's a little bit stronger. Okay, so I've got my paper to kind of protect my hand. Now I'm going to go in with a dark pencil. Here's a 6B, here's a 9B, and I'm going to do some of these darks right here. So I'm going to go in where that line is, and I kind of like doing the really dark darks first, just because I'm pressing hard. Now remember, there's a couple of different ways to get your values. One of them is the tool you use. So a 6B or a 9B or a 4B is going to give you, with the same amount of pressure, it's going to give you a darker value than using a number 2 pencil or a 4H, which is a very light one. So right in here, I'm using fairly hard pressure and with this 4H, and it's not really giving me a dark value. So pressure and the tool you're using. So I'm going to lift up on the pressure because I'm seeing a little bit of lighter value here. And the best way to get a nice smooth value is to hold your pencil really, rest your hand, your fist or the side of your hand on the table, and go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth in parallel motions and really get a tight value. But you can also let some pencil strokes work with you, because this is a drawing, it's not a photograph, so it's okay to let some pencil strokes in there be expressive. I could, if you look online and look at different pencil drawings, sometimes you see some really expressive lines. Okay, now I'm ready to blend that a little bit more to really make it look smoother. So I'm kind of eliminating a lot of those lines. And let's get some more value. On the bell itself. So, keep in mind your 10 values, and, you say, what's the darkest dark? Well, that's probably going to be my darkest dark. It's not black, because graphite doesn't go black, but that'll be the darkest dark. And then some of these shines, and like the rim is going to be fun to leave that really light. So I'm going to go in with, how about a 3B, and I'm going to get the edge of this bell, and I'm noticing there's a little bit of negative space between them, not much. So I'm coloring this, and there is a little ridge there on the bell. So when I was about 3, my birth mother died, and so my brother and my dad and I moved from Indiana, my older brother, to my grandparents' farm in Pennsylvania. My dad was teaching at Purdue, so he quit his job, and then we moved to Pennsylvania, and we lived at his parents' farm in Slatington, Pennsylvania, and it was a wonderful place for kids. Even after we moved out, Dad got remarried, and we ended up living fairly close by in Pennsylvania and would go over there often. And then when I was about 10, we moved to Arizona, and we would still go back every summer and spend about a month there. It was an old farmhouse, and they had bought it in the Depression, and he was sort of a gentleman farmer, but oh, what a wonderful place. My grandfather was an engineer and just was always building things. But they had a herd of cattle, a little herd of dairy cattle. And so this was sort of representative. The cows, some of the cows did wear bells, but these weren't the bells they wore. And I think my grandmother said that they ordered these from Germany or something. And okay, so now I've really smoothed it. So anyway, I have really good memories of the farm. It was just my dream place. And so this is one of the reasons I chose this as my special prized possession. I'm really lucky that of my 3 brothers and me, I'm the one that got these. I don't know how we finagled that, but we did. And we kind of have a little farmy house here, so it fit kind of perfectly in our window, our greenhouse window. So I'm just looking at values. A lot of times if you squint your eyes, you can see what value, and I'm realizing now, this is my dark pencil, that this value is really much darker even than the bell itself. So I'm going to continue to go in there and get a little bit more dark in there. Okay, and then I can smooth all that out. But now here's, I've been eating the vegetables. Now it's time for dessert, and that is getting out that little eraser. So I have a couple of erasers. This is a click eraser, or you could use a good old pencil eraser. These are nice. Or if you have a fairly new one on these Ticonderoga, you can use that, and it'll work well. I kind of like these click erasers, so I'm going to get this little rim of light. And this will actually show better. Let me go ahead and do some drawing on the bell behind it. Or I could use the... another thing you can do is dip your tortillon or rolled paper blender right in the graphite powder and work that way. And you'll get a little bit more control. So by putting that dark in there, and you can also use a Q-tip to blend. I have one around here, yeah. So these work great too if you don't have one of the tortillons. Okay, so just to get that little click eraser in there. And I would wait kind of till the end to do that so it won't get all smeared up. So let's try it over here. And this time I'm going to use the electric eraser. This is really a lot of fun. So I might have to kind of tilt the board here a little bit. And this will get you a really nice line. So that gives it that little sparkle. And then on this clapper part, that should, I'm just not going to push as hard. I'm going to lift that a little bit, but just not. You can blow. I also have a nice brush. You don't want to rub it. And so I would start to work in the different values. Let me show you a little bit on this board that they're hanging on. So I'm just using a number 2 pencil. I'm going to blend it. You could do a lot of work without your pencil or graphite stick even touching your paper. Just getting in there and using the tortillon or the blender. So I'm going to differentiate this background area from the edge of the bell. So I'm going to go a little darker. And this is a man-made metallic thing, so it needs to have a pretty hard edge, not a fuzzy edge like an animal. Okay, so on this, I could use my eraser stick and click eraser and lift out some of those little highlights where the light's hitting it and shows the texture. Watch when if you're doing a man-made subject, which most of us are on this. Although I did consider doing our oak tree, because that's a really prized possession. That's this 100-year-plus old oak tree in our house. But watch for thicknesses of things, like the thickness of the metal or the thickness of the leather strap here. So I want to go in with a darker value and show that the piece of leather is thick. And this is the thickness of the metal here, that little rim. Now, how about a real soft highlight? This is a hard highlight. And if you want to do a softer highlight, let me get this. You can use your kneaded eraser and just kind of gently lift a little bit. And that's nice because you can go to a fine point, or you can keep it broader. Like right down here, I see a little bit of a lighter value. So I'm starting to show the metallicness of it. And this little clapper has a little extra, they're each a little bit different. It has a little extra knob on the bottom of it. So depending on the amount of pressure you use with your eraser, you can lift a little bit, lift out some lights. Okay, I'm gonna end there, and I hope you enjoy working with the graphite pencil. Okay, have fun.